Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, enabled by digital technologies. Our meeting date is Monday, April 12th, 2022. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and delegations who will participate in our meeting tonight. At this time, I invite your decorum. Let's move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Councillors, we've had nothing ahead of time. Any of you wish to take the opportunity to make a declaration at this hour? We're not seeing any indication of that. So let us proceed then to explain our virtual process. I will be systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us tonight. I do this to some degree alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies text chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor who wishes to have a say beyond their supplemental will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the speaking list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors, as always, you're asked to generally maintain a mute state in the web conference until I recognize you go to the floor. If, when I do so, recognize I don't hear you because you are muted or are having some technical difficulty, I will advise. Should technical difficulty be the cause, support coming your way from our IT team, and I will, after reasonable pause, call on our next speaker, coming back to you when you are available again. Should any of the votes not show up in eScribe, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, then return to mute. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Why don't we start tonight with Councillor Behrens? Welcome, Councillor Behrens. Will you serve as mover for that?
Evening, Council. Yes, through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I will move that motion. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Duncan, welcome. Will you serve as seconder for that?
Yes, I'll sign that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, let's have that vote. You appear stalled for two. Okay, Councillor Behrens, we're not capturing your vote. What say you?
I am in favor.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, what say you?
Favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that's carried. Thank you. That moves us to agenda item 3, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they're believed to be non-contentious, yet they require council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are 7 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have any desire to extract these items for further discussion or action and indicate in the usual way? All right, I'm not seeing any indication of that at this hour. So I have a resolution for our consideration regarding the consent agenda as follows. The consent items 3.1 to 3.7 be received for information, and the minutes of the April 4th, 2022 regular council meeting be adopted. Deputy Mayor Kellum, welcome tonight. Will you serve as mover of that?
Yes, good evening, and I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston, welcome. And will you be our seconder for that?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow council. Yes, I would second that motion.
Duly moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
Mayor Todd, it's Julie. I am in favor. I'm just trying to reboot my
Thank you.
e-scribe.
Appreciate that. And with your vote, that's carried unanimously. And we wish you some luck. If you need support from Simon, we can direct that at this point. Let's move on then to agenda item number 4. To enable a public meeting on a drain matter that has been included on our tonight, we must temporarily recess from council. I have a resolution that allows us to do that. That reads as follows. Let me just pull it here. Papers are sticking together. All right. Resolution reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adjourns at 7:08 p.m. for the purpose of a public meeting under the Drainage Act concerning the following. Public meeting to consider a Turnbull municipal drain. Councilor Richardson, welcome this evening. Will you serve as mover for that?
Welcome, and through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, I would be happy to move that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, welcome to you. And will you serve as our seconder for that? Councillor Rothwell?
Yes.
You
Yes,
serve as-
I'd be happy to second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate from council on this resolution that will take us into a recess state? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
Mayor Todd, Councillor Rothwell, I'm in favor. My e-scribe, I have to reboot.
Yep, thank you very much. And with that vote, that's carried. That means we are temporarily adjourned. All right, let's pick up the business that we're adjourned for then. This is a opportunity for this council to hold a public meeting for consideration of the report for the Turnbull Municipal Drain. At this time, at this hour, we welcome assessed landowners. I'm not aware of any who have sought delegation status, but certainly if you're with us and wish to speak, we'll provide you with some opportunity to ask your questions. To begin, though, we'd like to receive a report from the engineer, in this case, Bill Dietrich, who is with Dietrich Engineering Limited. We invite you to present the report. The floor is yours, Mr. Dietrich.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaysenberg. The purpose of this meeting this evening is to consider the drainage report that was prepared by our firm. it will be noted as the Turnbull Municipal Drain 2022, and the report is dated February the 25th, 2022. I'll just spend a few minutes and review the scope of the work for this project and some of the technical aspects of the project. And I'll give a little outline of the background on what preceded prior to this meeting this evening. Originally, I guess we go back in time here. Our firm was appointed under Section 78 of the Drainage Act to prepare this report for improvements to the Turnbull drain. We had an on-site meeting on August the 26th of 2020, and then after the design work was completed and the costing was done on the project, we held an information meeting on December the 15th of 2021. This drainage report is going to update an old bylaw the municipality has on file right now, and it goes back and dates back to a report that was prepared by S.W. Archibald on this drainage system back on March the 30th of 1948. Back then, approximately 22,500 feet of the open ditch was cleaned out, and 4,500 feet of tile was installed at the upper end of the drainage system. Our proposal will include, again, excavation of 6,397 meters of the open channel, which is from the upper end to its outlet. There'll be also approximately 300 square meters of quarry stone riprap placed at various locations along the drain. And 10 new farm laneway crossings will be installed along with as well as one low-level crossing. This basically encompasses the work that's going to take place on the open portion. This open ditch drains approximately 1,200 hectares of land, which is again approximately about 3,000 acres. The total estimated cost for the work that's being proposed here for the main drain open portion of the project is estimated $566,300. This includes the allowances that will be provided to the landowners under sections 29 and 30 of the Drainage Act for right-of-way and damages to lands and crops, construction costs, and administration costs. The second part of the project is the tile system at the upper end of the drain will be replaced with a new drainage system. The main drain, and it'll be known as the main drain closed. This part of the project, again, the watershed boundaries is shown on the plan, but it drains approximately 150 hectares of land or 370 acres. This new tile drainage system, as I mentioned earlier, will replace the old 1948 drain, and we've designed it to a 1.5 inch drainage coefficient. The length of the drainage system is 1,525 meters. There's at the upper end of the drainage system will be a 525 millimeter tile, and at the lower end, an 825 millimeter tile. The drain commences at an outlet into the open ditch on the Delphia Farms Incorporated property. This is in lot 20 of concession 6. And the upstream end of the draining of this tile system will be on the east side of Road 158. And this is adjacent to lot 21 of concession 5. 2 road crossings involved on the project under line 78 and Road 158. We've estimated the cost of the work for the closed portion of this project at $460,800. And that pretty well summarizes the work or the scope of work for this project. And if there's any questions that council or any landowners might have regarding the work that's being planned here, I'll be pleased to answer those.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dietrich. At this time, we tend to open for questions from assisted landowners and or council. I will advise that the municipality did receive correspondence, and I think we should probably have that correspondence read into the record for the sake of it being considered, because there are certainly some questions there. So why don't we begin with that reading, and then we can chase questions from from any of council who wish to. I don't believe we have any landowners in attendance. But if I'm mistaken, I would invite after this correspondence is read into the record, the opportunity for them to have their say and ask their questions. So I'm going to adjust the AV settings to allow the clerk to read this into the record. Just hang out for a few seconds.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. To you and members of council, we did receive a piece of correspondence on Friday after the agenda was made public. So I will just read that out into the record. It's from Alan and Nancy Coughlin. So the correspondence reads as follows. Do take note that this drain has not been cleaned in 50 years. In previous years, flooding was not a problem until the rainwater from Atwood was directed into this drainage system, which makes its way to the Maitland River. Now, starting in 2021, a whole new large subdivision on line 75 East is drained into the Turnbull Municipal drain. Water that will include water from people washing their vehicles, runoff of people fertilizing and treating their property to make the perfect lawn. And apparently another subdivision right across the road will drain into the Turnbull Municipal drain. Take note that both of these subdivisions are being developed on quicksand and muckland where trees and vegetation use the excess water naturally. We realize for a change you are not taking prime agricultural land for building homes. Groundwater will not disappear just because someone approved it for a subdivision. No doubt sub pumps will be running continuously. The paved streets and driveways will not absorb rainwater. Our culverts were already being washed out and flooding occurring from the drains from Atwood and Highway 23, but adding these new developments to the drainage system is a problem. This is forcing us to put larger, more expensive culverts in to try and prevent the culverts from flooding. The culverts do get blocked by the garbage that flows down the ditch from Highway 23, line 164. Of course, we, the farmers involved with the Turnbull Municipal Drain, are now to pay for the larger culverts we need to take Atwood's excess water. No doubt those homeowners, along with the homes and multi-unit dwellings on Highway 23 North, will pay an embarrassing low amount of money to have their property drained into the municipal drain. No doubt the farmers will pay much more. The current charge to these households doesn't even cover the administrative costs. Households should be assessed a minimum $100 fee to have their property drained onto the Turnbull Municipal Drain. We hope North Perth Council and the engineer will stand behind any flooding, damage from too much water coming down from upstream and flooding our fields and crops. Remember, this is a municipal agricultural drain designed for farm drainage to flow into the Maitland River. Submitted by Alan Coughlin and Nancy Coughlin, who reside on line 75 in Atwood.
Thank you, Clerk Klein. Right. So with that, why don't we open this to council questions and we will ask the engineer or staff to respond to some of the points that have been made in the letter from Upwards. But first, let's turn to council. Councilors, do you have any questions that you would like to have addressed with regards to this matter? Another call here for councilors. Anyone wish to ask any questions about this matter? Okay. Councilor Duncan, let's start with you.
Thank you. This question is for the engineer. Bill, the subdivision that's draining into this drain has a stormwater management pond, so the pre and post flows should be the same off of that property. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. You can. I don't want to speak on behalf of the engineering firm that's designing the subdivision, but typically on all residential or commercial developments today, it is a requirement to provide stormwater management. Therefore, the runoff is collected in stormwater retention facilities and released gradually into the storm sewer system or into the municipal drainage system. And therefore, you don't have to increase the capacity of the pipes downstream because the water will be retained upstream And there's no question about runoff. I think that's everyone knows when you build a subdivision, there's going to be increased runoff. So the volume of water does increase, but it'll be gradually released to the drain, which when we designed these the new culverts that are being installed in the drain, and Alan Coughlin is getting his culvert replaced too. Most of the old culverts that are in the drain there are being replaced, and the reason is they're either they don't provide enough capacity, or they're in very, very poor condition. A lot of them just aren't long enough for today's equipment, and that was talked about when we did the design. So we've designed these pipes to using OMAFRA standards, and but I think to summarize everything here, when it comes to development of land, that is usually taken care of, or should be, through stormwater management.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I had the same question that Councillor Duncan had, so my question's been answered, and thank you so much for doing that. I guess my only comment now would be that will there be a response sent to the Coughlin so that their concern is addressed based on the information that was shared today? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. I'm kind of looking at the clerk, but this might be a question for Mr. Richardson, right? Mr. Richardson with us tonight?
Can you hear me there, Mr. Kaysenberg?
Yes, I can.
Sorry, I'm through my phone here. I'm having trouble with the internet tonight. We can send back some correspondence to the landowners there. That's no problem.
Thanks, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Dietrich, pertaining to the comments from the Coughlin's, there were a few other sort of loose questions there. Did you wish to make any comment or reassurance about the strategy that you have versus the concerns raised by those ratepayers?
Yeah, I think it all relates to this drainage system. I think a lot of the culverts that were installed in this drain throughout the years, maybe a lot of them maybe were installed privately. I don't think they were ever engineered or sized maybe properly. Just the Coughlin culvert, for instance, and when we had a look at it and we started sizing it, what was required. The existing pipe that's in the drainage system there now is a 1,050 millimeter pipe. I just looked it up here, which is a 3.5 foot diameter pipe. The one that's being proposed is a 1,600 millimeter pipe, which is a little over 5 feet in diameter. So we've got we're basically looking at providing more, over 2 times or 200% more waterway opening with the new crossing. So some of the culverts are in really poor shape and some of them are undersized, but they're undersized. We've designed these using OMAFRA recommended standards, which is in this case all culverts on farm crossings. We designed them typically to a 10-year design storm, and that's what these were designed for. So I think as far as the assessment of costs, I think that obviously can't be and will not be dealt with tonight. But I think the assessment for to the lands assessed is fair and equitable.
If I may ask the question, just so that I understand, there was some indication in the letter that we received that the landowner feels that there should be some contribution, perhaps a greater contribution than is usual from landowners in the new subdivision. Can you comment on that? That seems a little different in terms of notions. So, any response?
The lands and roads within Atwood have been assessed under our drainage report, and I think their share of the cost has been done fairly. It's been done through a block assessment, and so again, this is the purpose of the meeting is not to deal with the sharing of cost tonight. It's a technical aspect only that we can deal with and assess. And but I, in my opinion, anyways, obviously we've looked had a look at the and spent some time, obviously a lot of time on assessment of cost for this project, and we believe it's been assessed fairly.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Rothwell, I see.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you for the report, Mr. Dietrich. The question I have goes to the Coughlin's statement about the drain has not been cleaned out in 50 years. Could you just speak specifically to drain clean out of a municipal drain and how that process works, and just so that we can address that issue for all of council and the public that are listening? Thank you.
Yes, through your Mayor Kiesenberg, the typically once these drainage reports are updated, and this one here you'll have a new maintenance schedule in this report as well. So in the future, you don't need a new engineer's report to do maintenance. And any landowners down the road, this drain probably should have had some maintenance on it sooner, but I think it really is up to the landowners to request when work is required on the drain, and any landowner that has outlet problems or there's maintenance required in the future, all they have to do is put in a request to the drainage superintendent and it'll be investigated. So I can't, I know their existing bylaw is quite old, and it isn't appropriate to use it for all the work that's being taken place on this drain. And we also, you'll see, we've come up with new maintenance schedules for the open portion and the closed. So in the future, the municipality will be able to use this bylaw to assess out maintenance costs. But typically, you'll find most open ditches, I would say more 10 to 20 years is more appropriate for where general cleanouts are required and are needed. And I don't know all the history on the maintenance of this. All I know is the last report was done was 1948. I don't know how much maintenance has been done on the drain over since that last bylaw was passed. Anyways, you have a report that's been now updated that you'll be able to use for future maintenance.
Thanks very much, Bill. My supplementary question is with respect to your comments about some of the field crossings, like the culverts and so on. And I believe you were saying that it could be that some farmers had chosen to upgrade or replace culverts over that period of time on their own. Is that something that will no longer happen in terms of if the bylaw is approved and this drain does go forward for upgrading? Will farmers be required to get approval before they would change anything with respect to any new culverts? Thank you.
Yeah, as far as the replacement of culverts, you'll find, I think we this report here, just about all the crossings will be replaced or upgraded under this drain report. But in the future, if there is some farm crossings that need to be still replaced, the landowner should come in and sign a request, have that culvert replaced and designed properly. And if it requires just a report on that crossing, that can be done as well under the Drainage Act. But I think in the past, sometimes farmers have replaced culverts on their own, and but typically it's necessary to have, or it is a requirement to get approval from the municipality before any new culverts are put in the drain.
Thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate that. Thanks, Mayor Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. And in fact, I just learned something very useful. So thank you very much. I enjoy the opportunity to continue my professional development And tonight you helped me with that. All right, are there any other questions from council? All right, I'm not seeing any. I have not noted any significant concerns that haven't been addressed through the response to the correspondence that we received today. I did note the desire that correspondence be returned to the party that sent it in, and that's a great courtesy. We appreciate Mr. Richardson looking after that. But at this point, I think we can call this meeting to a close with appropriate resolution. So unless there's any concern about having a resolution to bring this public meeting to a close, I'll put that on the floor for us. That the public meeting for the purpose of the Drainage Act is now adjourned at 7:31 p.m. and that council reconvenes into regular open council. Councillor Cyber, welcome tonight. Will you serve as our mover on that one?
Thank you and good evening. Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, welcome to you. And will you serve as our seconder on this?
Yes, I'll second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Behrens, I think we're not seeing your vote at this point. What say you?
Am in favor. Thank you. I'll reboot again.
Thanks. So that's carried. Means the council is back into its regular open meeting. This time pertaining to this matter, we have 3 items for consideration, council. Let's go through them in order. The first is that is a resolution that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will accept the Turnbull Municipal Drain Report dated February 25th, 2022, prepared by Dietrich Engineering Limited. Councillor Anstead, welcome tonight. Will you serve as mover for that?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as seconder?
I will second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
Kaysenberg, I am in favor. I'm just in the process of rebooting.
Thank you. That's great, Councillor Behrens. That's carried. Thank you. Next up is the quarter revision date. The resolution reads as follows: that the council, find my words, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will hold the quarter revision for the Turnbull Municipal Drain on May 16th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Councillor Duncan, will you serve as mover for that one?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as the second?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Behrens, I'm guessing.
It still didn't come up.
I will say you're in favor or opposed?
I am in favor.
Thank you. And with that, that's carried. And third then is the bylaw. Bylaw number 60. Perhaps before we get into this, Simon, if you're attending, I'm hoping that you're assisting Councillor Behrens with connection and challenges that she's having tonight. All right, let's consider the bylaw resolution then. As follows: that bylaw number 60-2022 being a bylaw to provide drainage works municipal drain be introduced and considered read a first, second, and third time to be provisionally adopted, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I would certainly move that.
And Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our seconder?
I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And Councillor Barons, I know it's still plaguing you, I
I
think.
am in favor.
Thank you very much. And with that, that's carried, and we can move forward in our meeting. At this point, we have the opportunity for a delegation as well, wishing to present information to council. I think we're straight here. I'm pleased to welcome to our Mr. Warren Howard on behalf of Elma Mornington Concerned Citizens, who wishes to address council about zoning bylaw provisions and official plan provisions related to wind turbines. Mr. Howard, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kassenberg and Council. I won't spend much time introducing myself because I think most of you know me. The Elma Mornington group has sort of been working in the background, keeping an eye on things, and I am very active in the provincial group Wind Concerns Ontario, and that's sort of where I'm drawing a lot of my information from. So I'll move on to the first slide. Just for those who weren't involved in the 2011 to 2014 period, a history. North Perth was the site of a large proposed project by Invenergy called the Conestoga project. And there was great opposition to that project developed. And in the end, they couldn't find enough qualified sites and terminated the project. Another firm called WPD, which is a German firm, tried to start a project in Wallace and extended into Mapleton. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but bottom line was, I don't think they ever got enough sites to have a viable project, and it died. Again, because of strong opposition based on the learning from the Invenergy project. And so there is one wind turbine close to North Perth. It's actually just across the border in Mapleton. And it has a long history, but it ended up being put forward as a local community cooperative initiative funded by some environmentalists out of Kitchener. And so it's small, 500 kilowatts only. And I think also it was about 2014. I didn't go back and get the exact date.
So making supper.
North Perth Council passed a resolution declaring North Perth an unwilling host for wind turbines. And I think there was about 120 rural municipalities across the province passed that resolution. At that point, things sort of died because there was no need for capacity. So I think the opposition to wind turbines continues in our community, but it hasn't been a real issue. Next slide. In 2019, the new Conservative government amended the Planning Act and gave the municipalities a say in whether they wanted to host wind turbines in their communities. And they do that through statements in zoning bylaws. So there is control. And existing projects are exempt from that. But since North Perth doesn't have any existing projects, that's just academic. And provincial setbacks have not been changed. There's been a lot of push for the provincial government to do it, but I don't think we can expect to see anything until well after an election. But municipalities, when you write a zoning bylaw, the key piece is the setbacks. And municipalities are free to do that. So what the purpose of tonight's presentation is to ask the council to start the process of updating the official plan and zoning bylaws. So if I can have the next slide. The Ontario electrical system, as if you don't know, is actually 93% carbon free. And that's very different than other places like Alberta, which has a large coal component. That's because of our nuclear base, the hydro. Renewables are about 11% of output, and gas is at 7%. So the coal plants, which are the big thing that everyone gets concerned about, they were closed in 2014, and that was when Bruce Nuclear came back online. There has been some discussion about getting out of gas, but they're under contracts and they are needed for peak demand at the moment. But the Ontario Power Generation Group, their target is to be net zero carbon emission by 2040, and they have a plan to do that. So it requires new nuclear. Next slide. Wind turbines are an interesting thing. Many of the people who oppose them get accused of being deniers of climate change. Well, that's just not correct. And if you get into wind turbines, what you find is that the generation of electricity or output from wind turbines is not at all aligned with demand. And so you have the peak output is at night and in spring and fall, when demand for electricity is low. And when you have peak demand, daytime and summer and winter, the winds aren't there. So the way the contracts with the Ontario government were set up, wind turbine companies have the right to sell electricity to the province whenever it's produced. And so what we right now have is the province buying electricity under contract, but displacing nuclear and hydroelectricity and not generating any carbon reduction benefit. And since the output is intermittent, the benchmark figure is that you take the total capacity, the nameplate capacity of a wind turbine project, and you expect about 30% of that to be actually delivered. That means you need backup. And since wind is variable, it has to come on stream quickly, which at this point, that largely means fossil fuels. And so the backup systems for wind turbines are carbon emitting. And so, and the other, I guess the latest thing everybody is talking about is storage. Lots of hype, but when you get down into the actual, how much is going to be produced and how long is it going to last? Yeah. I like, when I buy hydro, I want my lights to stay on. So the bottom line is wind is a disproportionate contributor to the high cost of electricity, because when the province buys it, when they don't need it, they have to sell it at a lower cost or pay someone to take it away. And it is one of the main reasons why electricity in Ontario is costing us so much money. But the bottom line is adding more wind turbines to Ontario, I'm not saying in Alberta, in Ontario, will not substantially reduce carbon emissions. The Ontario Society of Professional Engineers goes further and says wind turbines could actually increase the carbon emissions because of their play. So it's wind turbines are this mythological solution to everything dealing with carbon emissions, and it's actually not a real solution. It's a fake solution, and I believe that we got to do something with climate change, and therefore I'm focusing on real solutions. Next slide. The electricity market is evolving, and so it is changing, and things have been happening since November, December of last year, and then through to right now. There is a need for new capacity. The Darlington plant is being refurbished, so it's offline, and Pickering is closing. And demand is growing because carbon emissions are being reduced by electrifying things. So the long-term picture is for a bigger need for electricity. So in January, the Minister of Energy, Todd Smith, announced a new RFP for 1,000 megawatts. Now, I said, okay, well, here we go. We're going to have wind turbine projects. The actual wording of the RFP, though, is that it has to be dispatchable, i.e., the province is going to say, I need it now, and they have to provide it at that, be able to provide it when they're called on, not if the wind is blowing. So the current RFP is certainly not aimed at wind. There is, I got, as we were coming online here, a copy of a letter from Todd Smith to Wind Concerns today. And this is just the first phase. There's going to be more RFPs coming. So there is going to be, well, we've got to be concerned about that. The other interesting thing is there's new markets for electricity developing. It used to be that the province was the monopoly, and when they put out the contracts, that was if you didn't get a contract with the province, you were out of luck. But manufacturing and industrial facilities are now looking for ways to become green, and so they are looking for their own supplies of renewable energy, and you can see them starting to come on board. And I don't know if you've heard about what's going on in the city of Ottawa, but they have become extremely aggressive in doing their carbon plan and are going to, I think it's net carbon free by 2050 is their goal, and here's how they're going to get there. At one point, they were estimating they needed 711 wind turbines to power the city. And that did not go down well with the rural parts of the city of Ottawa, because there's quite a bit of rural land in Ottawa. And so then they started looking at other places to put them, and didn't go down well in Eastern Ontario. And so where that's going to end up, we don't know. But so cities are trying to reduce their carbons and looking for rural Ontario to host wind turbines to provide it to cities. The one example is the Ottawa Renewable Energy Cooperative, which is a group in Ottawa that's working in concert with the city, actually has bought 2 wind turbine projects, one in Bruce and one in Huron counties. There's one near Tiverton and the other one near Zurich. So somehow this ties into their plans in Ottawa to become green. And that Ottawa Renewable Energy Cooperative is actively looking for investors in Perth County, as well as all the other counties in this area, to invest in renewable projects. I'm not quite sure how that fits with the Ottawa plan, but it's there. The other thing is, so we have lots of things going on that cause concerns, but we are also hearing reports of agents out trying to lease land for new wind turbine projects. And they're looking at reactivating ones that did not proceed. So, gee, we qualified for that. So since the rules changed in 2019 to now, the zoning bylaws have not been that critical. That's changing. And so we need I'm arguing we need to do something. Next slide.
Mr. Howard, can I ask you to be mindful of the time? We're past the usual delegation point. And so
okay.
If you can wrap up, I know you got a few more slides to go, but if you can wrap this up quickly, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so the current official plan actually welcomes wind turbines, makes them, Perth County wants to host them. There's great benefits. And they also argue that they're compatible with agriculture, which I find very bizarre. I'll skip to the next slide. So I don't know where you are in terms of rewriting the plan, but I haven't been able to see anything on that, but I would certainly suggest that given the county's strong focus on protecting farmland, that's a reason not to put wind turbines on farmland, and it's a reason that you can do that. And it's not required in the current policy statement. Next slide. So zoning rules, very clearly, I think you should be prohibiting wind turbines as a use for prime agricultural land. You should be establishing a proper noise setback. Wind Concerns is recommending 2,000 meters or 2 kilometers. There's some examples in an appendix that's protecting against both audible and low frequency noise, and also establishing setbacks from property lines. And here we're recommending about 1,200 meters. And there's pictures of turbines failing and what they are doing. And certainly the current setback of blade length plus 10 meters from property lines is not sufficient. In North Perth, I'll just mention there, from the 2013, 2014, there is a shadow flicker bylaw on the books and fire safety requirement on the books. As far as I know, they're still there. So in summary, I guess I skipped a slide here. We need to change the Perth County plan, and it needs to get going fairly soon, and put in some zoning bylaws, and I can talk to more of those in detail. So I will stop talking and respond to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Always informative. Council, we are a little bit past the usual delegation period, but I'll entertain a question or two at this point. Anyone have a question? I'm not seeing anything. Another call, councillors, any questions that you have for Mr. Howard about this matter? Councillor Andreessen, yes.
Thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and welcome, Warren. It's great to see you again, and we appreciate all your efforts with, you know, working with our community to support us and ensure that, you know, we're cautiously looking after our environment, but at the same time, cautiously looking after agricultural land. You said that the issue around the official plan needs to be addressed, and I believe this would rest at the county level. And is that something that you think that our county councilors should be taking forward in terms of addressing this in the official plan? Is that what you are hoping to see through this presentation? Thank you.
Do you want me to respond now or wait for?
Yep. Oh, sorry, Mr. Howard. Go ahead. I'm pretty casual about allowing that direct interaction. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. I am certainly willing to make a presentation to Perth County Council on this topic, because yes, the official plan is done there, and you can't amend your local zoning bylaws because if you went aggressively against wind turbines, you would be contravening the official plan. The official plan needs to change. So I thought I would start at the local councils. Next week, I'm making a similar presentation to Perth East.
Thank
So I
you.
don't know if that answer your question. I'm certainly willing to talk to Perth County Council.
I'll make some comments. I'll make some comments next myself about this just to be helpful. But next to Councillor Behrens, if that's okay.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Welcome, Warren. It's good to see you again, and I do appreciate all the hard work you've been putting into this for so many years. I am in full support of what Mr. Howard is suggesting, and we can easily, as North Perth Council, request that the county take a look at it as well. So, and that would possibly come under reports, or I would be interested to hear what staff's opinion on it as far as the official plan and the zoning are. So either way, we can certainly send our thoughts forward to Perth County, and hopefully they will continue to take a look at this and tighten up both the official plan and the zoning. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Behrens. Let me offer a few comments. I think because the question is, what is the state of the information? And should we be doing here, I think, with regards to this? I know certainly that there's been a premise that the new official plan is the vehicle through which we should spend our energy at this point to devote to the changes that we want to see, that we expect to see, and perhaps including the intent expressed by this group through Mr. Howard. I'll also say that early in my service as mayor, I wanted to ensure that the official plan was not prohibitive to additional dwelling units and other measures that would impact on housing supply and affordability. Because there was a new OP in development, movement to amend the existing OP at the time was discouraged. However, we've now had a chance to change that strategy given delays in development of the new official plan, and it is believed at this point, as I understand it, that the new official plan should be available in draft before the end of this year, this calendar year. So that leaves us sort of still in the question zone, right? What do we do? Do we take action now against the current official plan, which would take a few months to get through the system, as we discovered through with regards to additional dwelling units, or do we await the new official plan and ensure that this issue is addressed? I think my colleagues' comments about addressing the County of Perth are really important here, and so I think that should be in your line of sight, Mr. Howard, to make the delegation to the County of Perth. Certainly, I can enable that on your behalf if you like, or support you in that. And as you pointed out, and you are quite aware, the new comprehensive zoning bylaw actually will follow a new official plan. So that's still, well past this calendar year. That creates that time quandary, which I think you've identified, and you'll have to decide strategically how you'd like to proceed. But there is still a certain amount of concern about dealing with too many OPAs at this point, official plan amendments, given that a new OP is pending and believed to be near birth. So I just want to share that sort of thought process and information that has happened. Councillor Rockwell.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Warren, for your presentation. As I recall, you made this presentation or a similar one shortly after this council was elected in 2019, and we were told then that the matters were going to be discussed in the new official plan. And I appreciate, Mayor Todd, your update with respect to timing. However, even with the draft being available towards the ends of this year, it still takes time to get approved by the province. So I am concerned about the lack of progress on this matter, which has clearly changed since the official plan policy was first put in place. And I would just advise this council, and certainly you, Warren, that when these policies were put in place, in fact, the Perth Federation of Agriculture and invited Paul Gipe, who at that time was considered to be one of the foremost individuals regarding wind turbines in agricultural areas on wind turbines, period. But the federations of agriculture were interested as the possibility of cooperative farmers cooperatives building and developing these wind turbines, certainly on a much smaller scale than what we've seen here and what was actually proposed close by here. So time has changed significantly since, and the matter has changed significantly since the original policies were put in place. County Council has not changed the policy. So therefore, as you correctly pointed out, it is permissive, it is supportive, because that's the policy that was in place at that time. I think clearly you've shown that the times have changed, and certainly with North Perth Council's decisions, as you've pointed out over the last number of years, have as being an unwilling host, for example, as well as putting in additional requirements, are certainly clear that we need to, as Councillor Behrens has correctly pointed out, if Council agrees, we need to have County Council look at this matter and make the determination, perhaps as a standalone official plan amendment, to deal with the matter sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
I think I'd like us to move on now with the rest of our meeting, but Mr.
Well,
Howard,
can I just do one quick comment? Because I'm wondering if there's a
Sure.
middle ground where we could, or you could, the county could got the pro wind turbine provisions of the official plan without rewriting it. Just take this section, remove it. If that would be faster. And then the zoning, I guess, rests with the local municipality, I would understood. And there is a provision that I recall for a year-long interim bylaws or something like that, controls for when you need to do more study and takes time to get it. So that may be the solution for the zoning. I'll just throw those out as options. Thank you for your time.
thanks, Mr. Howard, very much. And be assured that, you know, we will do what we can to support the process that's needed here. Certainly, you know, council probably needs to consider resolutions if we wish to ourselves move forward with the official plan amendment at this point. Be assured that if you need any support from myself or my county council colleagues, we'll do what we can to connect you with the right people and support your attendance at county council as a delegate there.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, council, that brings us to item number 5, reports from departments and key staff. For item 5.1.1, the CAO brings forward a report in response to an earlier request by a community party, It Takes a Village, and the direction for a report from council on the subject of a single entity farmers market. This market was proposed to be located on the concrete patio of the Listowel branch of the North, and at the time sought a license fee waiver. I'm going to call on CAO Snell to share his report and recommendations therefrom. Welcome, Mr. Snell.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, as the Mayor is correct, on February 28th, Council received correspondence from It Takes a Village requesting permission to hold an outdoor market venue in front of the North Perth Library at the Listowel branch. The request from It Takes a Village is attached for Council's reference. Council directed staff to prepare a report on this request, including some of the concerns raised at the earlier meeting, including the incorporated status of It Takes a Village, as well as their insurance coverage. So It Takes a Village has confirmed in writing that they did receive incorporation in 2020, and they currently carry $2 million of liability insurance. To date, It Takes a Village is not a registered charity. The library board did discuss this proposal and had some concerns just with the use of the outdoor space in front of the library, and staff were directed by the board to create a policy for the outdoor space to address both this request and future requests. On March 30th, North Perth staff met with It Takes a Village to discuss the proposal and possibly look at potential alternate locations. So areas like the Municipal Office, Memorial Park, and Livingstone Park were discussed. Livingstone Park next to the library was the preferred location by It Takes a Village. It is an underutilized community park close to the original proposal. So to address the concern about setting a precedent, staff is suggesting the license fee of $250 for a farmer's market remain in effect, and that the applicant provide proof of insurance. The recommendation is that It Takes a Village be permitted to operate a outdoor market at Livingstone Park every other Saturday, commencing in May from 9 until 2 p.m., 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., with all of the provisions of Bylaw 95, 2015 remaining in effect. Certainly the option available to council if other concerns are raised is to deny the request from It Takes a Village. Certainly happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you for your report, CEO Snell. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? Councillor Richardson.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I understand the principles that this request is certainly coming forward to, but I'm just wondering by recommending to approve this, that if we're not setting a different precedence, that we are actually allowing a non-charitable organization to basically set up shop for 6 months on municipal land. I think that creates a very dangerous slope, even if we still accept the permit. I don't know if we would do that for someone else, because it certainly doesn't stop anyone from saying they would like to set up something and sell widgets or something like that and I don't get me wrong, I certainly understand the premise that this is coming from and the good intentions that it is. But if somebody wanted to sell stuff in Memorial Park, any other park, if it was a one-off, I might be a little bit more apt to agree with the motion that is put forward or the recommendation that is put forward. However, the way it stands, I just think it sets too much of a precedence, especially for a 6-month growing season. That's a lot of commitment to be utilizing municipal space, and I think it sets a precedent. And I also think that it's has the opportunity to affect a lot of farm gate sales of where people are genuinely trying to make a profit by selling their yearly crops that they have. Perhaps I'm out to lunch, I'll gladly stand for that, but I don't necessarily think that this is, if it was on private property, better, but I don't think it's adequate for municipal property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Anyone else with first comments or questions or suggested action? Okay, I'm not seeing anything other than Councillor Richardson's earlier comments. I have a resolution as proposed in the CAO's report as follows. Council of the Municipality of North Perth permit It Takes a Village to operate an outdoor market venue every other Saturday from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. from May to October 2022 at Livingston Park, 175 Livingston Avenue South, Listowel, with all provisions of Bylaw 95-2015 remaining in effect. Councillor Rothwell, could I call Anita to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll move.
Thank you. Councillor Seiler, would you like to be the seconder?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion or debate further? I'm not seeing any. Let's call any discussion or debate. I know some of the internet connection seems slow tonight. All right. Having not seen any, let's have that vote. And that is carried with a vote of 7-3. Thank you for that report, CAO Snell. Let's find my words again. Let's look next at item 5.1.2. Council is updated on the work of the Commission project on creating a North Perth agricultural excellence strategy. I'm going to call on North Perth CAO Chris Snell for comments about this item with the first report from the consultants. Mr. Snell.
Thank you again, Mayor. Tonight's report is an update from MK&A on the progress so far on the North Perth Agricultural Excellence Strategy. So throughout the month of March, MKA has undertaken an initial environmental and market scan of the sector. Have talked to a number of key stakeholders in the sector. The initial scan, I don't think yields a lot of surprises. Certainly, the sector in North Perth is very diverse. We're not unique. So having said that, we don't have a specialty crop or have a climate or soil conditions that make us unique from the vast part of the rest of the region. We have many of the same issues that are facing the sector across the country. And certainly, labor shortage has been certainly key among the conversations. So I think this sounds a little like that there's nothing jumping out at MK&A at this point. And I think in some ways that's actually a positive, because I think our diverse agricultural sector and does protect us against things like specific market downturns or one sort of crop failures or changing quickly changing consumer habits. And I think the conclusions are there's certainly not one sort of brick and mortar solution that's going to solve all our issues. They are learning that certainly a vision around the region demonstrates leadership and says a great deal about our commitment to agriculture. And I think really the long and short of it is the next round of consultations will be much broader. And I think I will be looking at sort of exploring a thesis around that leadership focus and key differentiators. So certainly there'll be more to come, but this is certainly the work to date from MK&A, and I'm certainly happy to take any comments back to MK&A that council may have. Staff have been meeting with them weekly throughout the project.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Council questions or first comments? Okay. I know that our package didn't include anything, but it's usual custom for reports such as this to receive the report for information. Okay, let's turn to Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Chris, for the update there. One issue that I hesitate to bring up, but North Perth is one of the highest concentrations of livestock for an area. And we were shaken back in the early 2000s when we had BSE, for example, and we went through a process wherein Atwood Pet Food, as it was known at the time, needed to expand to accept the BSE material and so on. When we talk, and we don't always look at that necessarily as being a world leader or anything like that, but that was a crucial matter for our municipality and our agriculture sector, not just in North Perth, but well beyond, to address. And I'm not believing that the report should specifically address something like Atwood Resources as they're known now. But that's crucial for us to look at what locally is available that serves the broader agricultural area. And I think we do have other agricultural related activities or services like Atwood Resources that do serve the sector well beyond North Perth. And I think we might, when we talk about, yes, we do have a broad spectrum and diversity, but when we look at the amount of livestock here, as well as poultry, and I hate to say it, but bird flu is on the radar again, and we have a tremendous amount of poultry within North Perth as well. So I think we need to encourage and support any activity that's going to safeguard or protect our agricultural activities that we have now. And those are only 2 points that I would suggest that staff could have additional conversation with the consultant on. Hopefully the new or the next stage where they're dealing with agricultural leaders within our community, they would address some of those items. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Cheerful messages, always appreciated. Yes, I think wisdom in your comments, and CAO Snell, I trust you'll convey that information to the consulting team for their consideration. Anyone else want in on this one before we consider simple resolution for the purposes of receiving the report for information? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so let's try a resolution here that council received the report from the CAO about the Agricultural Excellence Strategy Project for information. Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'm happy to make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstett, will you serve as the seconder?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? I'm hoping that Trustee Sarah has kept up with our thinking here. Let's have that vote. And we're missing 2 at this
Mayor
point.
Kaysenberg, I am in favor.
Thank you. That's Councillor Behrens. Who else are we missing?
Councillor Andreessen here. I'm in favor as well.
Thank you very much. And with those 2 votes, that's carried unanimously. Thank you for that. Council, let's move on then. CAO Snell, thank you as always for your reports. They are certainly instructive and helpful to council in conducting our business. Next up then is item 5.2, reports from the clerk's department. We have no report indicated here. For this meeting, that moves us along to item 5.3, reports from programs. Again, reports not coming from that department this evening. Item 5.4, reports from facilities department. No reports there this evening either. That allows us to move to item 5.5, reports from finance department and treasury. Item 5.5.1, council is asked to authorize the maintenance and repair of the Kells Municipal Drain. Ms. Hale is not with us tonight, but if there are any questions that council has on this matter, we can attempt to supply an answer, perhaps to the CAO. So I'll turn to council for questions or queries on this one. We're not seeing anything, so I have a bylaw resolution for our consideration as follows: that bylaw 57-2022, being a bylaw to authorize the maintenance and repair of the Kells Municipal Drain, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I will move that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And we are waiting on, oh, we got everybody. The technology problems resolved. That is carried. Excited that we're all in at this point. All right, let's turn to item number 5.6 on our agenda. We have one report from our Environmental Services Department tonight. For item 5.6.1, the council is invited to approve a revised bylaw related to the regulation of sewer and stormworks in the municipality. Sounds pretty important here. I'm going to invite Mark Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, to address this item. Mr. Hackett.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. We have been operating in North Perth in accordance with the current sewer use bylaw since 2003. So we're almost 20 years and probably in need of a bit of an update. So a new sewer use bylaw is before you tonight. It's been reviewed by Environmental Services, Public Works, the Building Department, and also Finance. A couple things before I dive into it. This is a pretty typical or standard bylaw. I have looked at many different bylaws throughout Ontario to find some that are more that are newer, that maybe the last 5 years type of thing, and have tried to glean what I could from other people's bylaws, and I've put it into what I think relates most to North Perth. So that being said, I will go through each of the sections briefly and highlight some of the things that I think may need highlighting. Along the way, if there's any questions, please stop me, or we could have any questions at the end as well. So the other thing, part I'll note is that partially for you guys and partially for the clerk, is that when I'm referring to page numbers, I'm going to refer to the page number of the council package, not the bylaw itself. It'll just be a little bit easier to follow through as I go through in order. So starting on page 171, then we have the definitions. And again, there's about 6 or 7 pages of definitions. No need to go through them. I think they just are simply there to provide information that reflects what's in the bylaw. So I don't think we need to go over those at all. I would like to then go to page 177, which is part 2. And this is a new section of the sewer use bylaw. And I think it's an important one too, to go over. And basically what it is, it's a requirement that if services are available, we would require people to connect to those services. So trying to explain that a little bit. Typically, if any new subdivision, and as council is well aware, there are a lot of different subdivisions going in. Typically, the builder or the developer is required to put the services in the ground. And then we don't have anything to worry about that. So this doesn't really apply to that part of it. What it does apply to is more for if existing services are, if we're extending services into an existing area. And I'll give you an example of that. That would be line 86 west, past the roundabout, when we provided services for those heading out Highway 86. And what would happen in that situation is there would be a bylaw that's very specific to that project that would outline a timeline for people to connect and also any applicable fees. So it would be different for each situation. This is more of a blanket statement saying that if there are services available, you need to connect. That being said, moving to the next page, which is page 178, there's an exemption noted in it. So if someone didn't want to connect, that has a building that's existing at the time of this bylaw being enacted, they would be able to pay the municipality the minimum non-metered monthly or bi-monthly sewer charge that's stipulated in Schedule Q of the Fees and Licenses bylaw. And I also wanted to note here that there could be previous bylaws or agreements that have been arranged with the municipality that may supersede this requirement to connect. Kind of moving forward then, that under 2.3, there is a new service connection application that would, and that really applies to infill lots in the municipality where there may be a lot that doesn't have a home on yet, but services are there. They would also be required to connect, and there's a process that's outlined through the next couple of points that they would follow a process. And speaking of that, then I would like to bring a report back to council in the next couple of weeks where I would amend the fee schedule to reflect some of these changes that will be coming due to that. The next part, a couple parts over the next few pages are just more details about how this would work. What we'd expect for installation under 2.11, for example. We require any of the pipes and sewer laterals, they have to meet the Municipality North Perth Municipal development and servicing standards, and possibly any building code issues as well. It outlines that they need to be inspected by the municipality. We have to have access for inspection. So there's a number of things there that are all part of this process. So moving then to part 3, which is on page 180, halfway down the page there. This is also a new section of the bylaw, and it's simply talking about operation and maintenance. And about responsibilities for who's responsible for what. So the municipality would be responsible for maintenance of from the main to the sewer lateral stub, which is basically at the property line. And then anything in from there to the home would be the responsibility of the owner. And so it outlines some of those things. And there's more details there, but I won't go over specifics there unless council has any questions about those. Then moving on to page 182. And that's part 4, and that is about discharges to sewer works. It references Schedule A limits for sewer works discharge, and that's at the back of the bylaw. It's a very typical part of any sewer use bylaw that you will find. They're almost identical in every single one, and it just outlines things that are prohibited. And I could go through a whole whack of these, but there's about 4 pages of things that are prohibited from occurring. And again, like I said, this is very standard information that's in any sewer bylaw. It was in our old sewers bylaw as well. And like I said, there's a few pages of the host. So moving then to part 5 is the other part of it. That's discharges the stormwater works. So again, this one references Schedule B, which is limits to stormwater works. That one again doesn't have quite as much stuff, but it's still talking about things that are prohibited from being put into any stormwater works. That moves then on to page 187, right at the very bottom of page 187. It talks about, and this is an important little part, it's very short, but it's about the prohibition of dilution. And all this little section simply says is that you can't dilute what you're putting into the sewer system or into the stormwater works in hopes that you will be able to achieve compliance with the bylaw. That's not acceptable. Moving then to the next page, 188. It talks about reports, and this was in our old bylaw, but it just amended a little bit. It talks about any new ICI, industrial, commercial, or institutional properties that are coming online, that we would ask them to fill out a discharge or information report. So it gives us a bit of idea of what to expect to be coming into the sewer, or into the storm sewer, or to the sanitary sewer. And then that leads us into whether or not there may need to be some type of an agreement made. And that's part 8. And there's 2 different types of agreements. This is a pretty new section as well. So there's 2 different types of agreements. There's an extra strength surcharge agreement, and there's a hull wastewater treatment agreement. So 8.1 at the bottom of the page is the extra strength surcharge agreements. They refer to Schedule A. So anything that doesn't meet there we would have to do testing on, and there's some main things that we test. They're listed in A there. And that then we use those test results to do a calculation to show how much that extra surcharge would be. And that's noted in Schedule Q that you see each year as it gets amended each year. And I noticed here that I had a couple of, at the bottom, the numbering or the lettering was off a little bit, so I'll have to amend that. Moving to the bottom of this page, 8.2a is talking about hauled wastewater treatment agreements. These were not in any of the previous bylaw. Then that's talking about waste that's brought in by truck to our septic receiving station. Again, there's certain things that are tested that we use that information then to do a calculation on how much we charge them. I'd note here that for both types of agreements, we've added sulfides as H2S. As council may recall earlier this year during the capital presentations, I noted that we've been having an issue with sulfides or H2S at the headworks of the wastewater treatment plant, which is a number of issues, mainly that it's a health and safety issue for staff entering the building, and also it can be corrosive on equipment. So we've added that in so that that calculation will be included. So I'll bring that back as well if this is approved by council, and that'll be part of Schedule Q going forward. This all leads us into Part 9, which I think is one of the more important parts of this bylaw, and it talks about a compliance program. And basically 9.1 and 9.2 talk about that if someone is discharging sewage into and in a number of ways, directly into the sewer through an extra surcharge, extra strength surcharge agreement, or through a hauled wastewater treatment agreement, the municipality at our sole discretion would be able to require them to enter into a compliance program that may include the requirement for pre-treatment facilities. That would be prior to us receiving these wastes at our plant. This plan would include details, dates, and timelines, and expectations that would be met for the sewage that they'd be bringing into our plant. I think it's important here to note also that the important part of this is that this will allow us to work with the customers that are bringing in higher strength waste and come up with a plan to make it more acceptable to us at the wastewater treatment plant. And it will ensure that that cost of the pre-treatment is borne by the producer of that high strength waste, not the rest of the ratepayers and not the other users of the septic receiving station. So I think that's one of the important parts of this bylaw moving forward. It goes into a bit more detail. I won't go into all of that, but it talks about surcharges and monitoring and different costs and things like that through the next couple of pages. Moving on to page 192. That's section 10, sampling and analysis. This is pretty typical of any bylaw. There's really not any changes, maybe some minor ones to what we had in our previous bylaw. It talks about that we have to have access for sampling. We have to have basically that access for sampling and that we're allowed to do it. Part 11 is also right at the bottom of the page here. It's about spills. And again, nothing's really changed here. This is in every sewer use bylaw across the province. It talks about what notifications need to be made. It talks about what reporting needs to be done, what corrective actions, how the costs are handled, and things like that. The next section is on page 194 and garbage grinders. The next two sections are new. Garbage grinders are prohibited. Basically, there could be a lot of issues with solids going into sewer laterals and into the mains, into pump stations, and then eventually to the plant. Solids are not where we really want don't want them going into the wastewater system. So this is what we see. Again, most new sewer use bylaws include this provision. Moving to part 13 at the bottom of that page is information regarding grease and sediment interceptors. So 13.1 talks about the requirement for interceptors for oil and grease for food premises. The next part is interceptors for oil and grease. That would be more for like a service garage or something like that, where there's floor drains to protect them from spilling oil or something in that could get into the sewage system. The next part is interceptors for sediment. This would be for industrial, commercial, institutional premises that they may, maybe like a car wash or something like that, that may have sediment that could get washed in that we don't want going into the sewer system as well. So there's an interceptor there. 13.4 and 13.5 are just about maintenance is required and inspections are required. And the records would also must be available for the municipality to review if needed. Part 14 is on page 195. It talks about inspection and access to property. These are things that are important that we have to be able to access dwellings, to have entry onto lands, and to access industrial and commercial properties for purpose of enforcing this bylaw. Pretty typical, again, every single sewer use bylaw there has information about access. Part 15 on page 197 talks about, and this is new as well, it's just a little bit about liability for damage if you fail to comply with this bylaw. Part 16, just a little further down that page, is on application, administration, and enforcement. This has been amended a small little amount. We end up with part 17, offense and penalty provisions. Again, this is pretty typical. This is what you would see if you don't follow what's in this bylaw, what can happen. So it talks about these different prohibitions. It talks about the penalties that you could face for continuing offenses, penalties to individuals or persons, penalties to corporations. And that basically is what's in this bylaw. I know there's a lot of information there. I appreciate your time listening to that. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have about it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hackett. Councillors, any first comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. The science geek in me, Mr. Hackett, wants to point out that you may have spelled the nitrogen measure, the Kaldal nitrogen, incorrectly in section 8.1 and 8.2 bylaw. You may want to do a search through the rest of it for your benefit. And further in section 14.1, you use the term municipality without a capital letter, and that could lead to some misinterpretation. The bylaw document itself uses a capital M on the municipality and definitions, and you might want to make sure that says that because it relates to your inspection powers. So, and perhaps three minor corrections there that I've taken note of. Anyone else have comments or questions on this one? All right, I have a resolution for consideration as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth consider bylaw number 59-2022 being a bylaw to provide for the prohibition, regulation, and control of discharges to the sewer works and stormworks of the Municipality of North Perth, and be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation, assuming you make those minor adjustments if they're relevant. Let's see here. Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our mover for this one? Mayor Kellum, one last call here. Will you serve as our mover for this with this resolution?
Yes, I'll make that motion. I must be having some internet
Yeah,
problems here. Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of winked out here too.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this hefty update? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote.
I am in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens, and we're missing one more. Councillor Rothwell. I'm not seeing your vote, Councillor Rothwell. What say you? Councillor Rothwell? The YouTube stream ended. Okay. We may have to address that. Simon, if you're within hearing distance, apparently there's some kind of technical problem with the live streaming that we may have to adjust. I appreciate your visit. And Councillor Rothwell, are you with us or no? Are you seeing him in the interface? Okay, so we're not seeing Councillor Rothwell. I think we'll need to declare him absent for this vote and call it carried with his absence. Council, I have, as you've heard, I've been advised that our YouTube feed may have discontinued. So I think we need to pause the meeting at this point.
It's back online, Your Worship.
Is it? Oh, thank you very much, Councillor Richardson. I'm not quite sure what happened there. It seemed like there was a series of unfortunate events. Deputy Mayor Kellum got stuck in that, and I saw it wink at my end, and so who knows? All right, thank you very much. Mr. Hackett, thanks for all your work. Quite monumental and much appreciated. Let's turn to item 5.7, reports from our manager of operations. We have no reports tonight from our operations department, but we extend our usual thanks for their service. Item 5.8, reports from the fire department. Likewise, no report from this department this evening, but we know they've been working hard, including with new recruits and training in recent days, and we appreciate what's going on there. That brings us to item 6 on the agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or of our committees? Usual approach to seeking the floor. And let's begin first with Councillor Behrens.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you, I'm wondering if this is the point in the agenda where we could maybe consider some sort of action with regards to Warren Howard's presentation this evening. Right now, I know it's very frustrating that we have been waiting on the new official plan for several years. And to say that we might not have it till the end of this year, beginning of the next, I'm really struggling to be satisfied with that. I really do think that it is in North Perth's best interest, at the very least, to maybe receive a report, perhaps from the CAO, with regard to, what could be changed or how we should go about changing the official plan with wind turbines in mind. I would be happy with a report for now, and maybe from that report send something on to Perth County Council. But I'm interested to see if anyone else has any concerns. Thank you.
Councillor Barron, seems like a noble approach. Why don't we consider entering a resolution onto the floor for that purpose, to direct staff to prepare a report, which is to address changes to the official plan and to zoning bylaw related to wind turbines in North Perth. I'm going to assume, Councillor Burns, you'll be the mover if it's satisfactory to you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as a seconder on that one?
Yes, I would certainly second that.
Thank you very much. All right. Council, anyone, any debates, comments about this one? I see a note from CAO Snell that the report came from the planning staff. I'm not sure of our privileges, CAO Snell, with regards to directing planning staff, which are employees of the County of Perth. Perhaps if you take the motion in that fashion, and if you need an additional wording to strengthen that argument, then you can essentially direct it to the county with the request. Is that?
Well, yes, your mayor. I think the way you worship the recommendation just from staff is appropriate.
Right. So I think the outcome is what's sought more than great clarification of the process. Whatever gets us there, Chris, I think is the way we should look at this one. Okay, anyone else have comments? Right, I'm hoping that Sarah has kept up with us. So Sarah, let's have that vote. We're missing Councillor Rothwell, who appears to be absent still. Unless Councillor Rothwell, I'll call for you. Are you with us? I'm not hearing response. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, I think, is the other one who's missing.
Yes, my eScribe's down again. I'm in favor. I will reboot eScribe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so with that, noting Councillor Rothwell's absence, that is carried. Thank you. And I think we had another request here. Councillor Seiler is next.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. It's just something that has been brought to my attention by a lot of ratepayers that seems to be happening every day. Now that the state of emergency has been lifted, I feel we need to figure out what we are doing with our meetings. People just asked with the festivities that have been happening in our municipality, what's council doing? Are you just going to be coming back to the council chambers or not? So I feel it's something that we need to address, and maybe have staff make a report to give the ratepayers a direction on what we plan on doing, either either we're going to be having our meetings back or if not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Seiler. CAO Snell, I can assure you first, Councillor Seiler, that some work is being done on this. CAO Snell, did you want to give a brief update now and perhaps a timeline for a report on this matter?
So certainly at this time, staff continue to have lots of discussion. Currently, public health are still recommending social distancing and possible mask wearing where social distancing can't be met. So at this time, we could accommodate the council chambers according to public health guidance to accommodate the council members, but it would lead to limited space for staff and certainly would leave us almost no space to invite the public back in. So many of the municipalities that are having council meetings are still not permitting the public to attend. So we are continuing to work on a hybrid option, but certainly staff, if it's a direction of council, we can prepare a report that can come back at a future date.
Thank you, CAO Snell. I'll sort of add to it that there are some complexities with having hybrid meetings that I'm not sure we've completely worked out all the time. Because I know that there's some work being done to but it's important to remember that even if we brought council back into chambers and managed to accommodate staff, but could not have public in the chamber, then we would need hybrid approaches, and therefore we need the technology and everything that goes with that to work well and to be equitable to all. But that would be considered in the report. So can I just query then, Councillor Seiler, would you like to formally request to direct, as a resolution, to direct staff?
Yes, I think that we owe it to our people and just to to clear the air on what we're doing and about it and whatnot. And thank you very much, Chris, for your report. But yes, I would think that it would be good if staff could bring us back a report and kind of then we can address it, talk about it then. Thank you.
So let's have a resolution to the effect that council directs staff to prepare a report outlining approaches with regards to public council meetings, given the pandemic changes and given advice from Officer John. Does that seem to capture your intent, Councillor Seiler?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Staff can work out the rest.
Yep, thanks. Councillor Richardson, will you serve as a seconder for that?
Yes, I will second that. Thank you.
Very good. Any discussion or debate? We have a note in our council notes here that Councillor Rothwell was continuing to have problems. I don't know if he's managed to resolve them.
Someone did call in.
Someone called in.
Yeah, yes, Mayor Todd, it's Alan, Councillor Rothwell here. We're not in a vote yet, but I do vote in favor of what's on the floor or coming on the floor. I don't know. I'm rebooting and everything else here, so.
Okay. We'll get to the question momentarily, but I'll call formally for you. Any other discussion or debate on this motion to direct staff around advice for council resumption in either hybrid or live format? I'm not seeing any, so let's have that vote, and I'll get you in a minute, Councillor Rothwell.
Yes, thank you.
And Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
I'm in favor.
Thank you, and with that, that's unanimously carried. Any other item 6 entries we should be considering at this point in time? I'm not seeing any indication in our chat, so let's move on to item 7. For item 7, we have received 2 items of correspondence which require our action. The first, for item 7.1, we have a request from the Oswald Bayfield Conservation Authority to introduce the Yellowfish Road program in North Perth. Councillors, any comments or suggestions for action here? I believe our circumstance is that they have advised us that this program is available to us. I suspect that most of us have the question in the back of our mind that Valley is normally our conservation area, and we have some implication here from them. And I see that Councillor Duncan has offered to speak or ask a question. He is the chair of the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, so it seems very appropriate. Councillor Duncan, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. No, I'm fully in support of this program. It's the Asaba Bayfield runs this program through their outreach staff. And I like I said, Maitland Valley does cooperate with Asaba Bayfield on other projects. And I'm certainly willing to support and make a motion that we move forward and partner with the Asaba on this program.
Thank you. I think a motion is in order. Councillors, do any of you wish more information about this? We do have with us the appropriate representative from the Asaba Bayfield Conservation Authority. So if you'd like to ask questions, we can indulge that. But if not, the rule is ready, and then we'll act to put a motion on the floor as suggested from Councillor Duncan. Anyone? All right, Councillor Duncan, I'm going to assume that you will move that that we support the Yellowfish Road program being introduced.
Yes, I certainly will.
Bayfield, thank you. And let's go to Councillor Rothwell. Will you be our seconder for that one?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. I'm jumping all over the name map here, councillors, so I'll get it back straight soon. Any discussion or debate with regards to this item? Okay, Trustee Sarah, let's have that vote. And Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. And with that, that's unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you for being on standby for us tonight, our guest from Asaba Bayfield Conservation Authority, but we're happy to support. So, done. Right. Next up then is item 7.2. We have received a collection of correspondence inviting support for the Moncton 165 homecoming event scheduled for June 24th to 26th in the village of Moncton. Council is asked to approve the operation of a couple food trucks, 2 food trucks, and to waive a tent fee and send a delegate. Council, I am pleased to, with your indulgence, to represent council on that occasion. But with regards to the other matters, does anyone have any concerns? Shall we consider a resolution that endorses the actions asked? Okay, so I'm not seeing any expression of concerns or comments. I think then what we need to do is essentially approve the request for the operation of 2 food trucks and to waive the tent fee for the Moncton 165 homecoming event scheduled for June 24th, 26th, 2022 in the village of Moncton. Okay. Councillor Richardson, did you wish to make some comments?
Yes, and thank you so much through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I think it's wonderful that Moncton's going to be celebrating 165 years, but I'm just wondering, will we be setting precedents with waiving the tent fee? Because I know we've had many requests that have come through in the past for that, for very limited for what we waive our fees for that. I truly understand what they're trying to do, but can anyone shed some light onto that? Have we ever done anything for similar circumstances or similar events of the same type of nature? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. CEO Snell, you have some comments on this one? Any history here?
I would have to ask for a report on that. I just from top of my memory, I can't recall when and if we've waived tent permit fees, but we could certainly check into that with building department staff. So if we want to defer that part of the application, we can bring it back at the next council meeting.
Okay, so the resolution then is probably to the effect of approving the operation of 2 food trucks the 165 homecoming event, and further to direct staff to bring forward a report about the feasibility of the tent fee with understanding the implications, something like that. That's not what Okay, so the clerk says that sounds about right. If anyone has any amendments or adjustments, please let's get them because I'm working on the floor here. Councillor Andreessen, would you be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anstett, will you be our seconder on that one?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the motion has the effect of approving the operation of 2 food trucks during the period. And we're going to await a report from staff just to make sure the precedent implications of the 10 fee waiver request. Everyone understands that that's our intent. Any discussion or debate? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'm hoping that Sarah has made sense and navigated through this. Let's have that vote. Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. And Councillor Barnes, what say you?
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that's carried. Thank you very much. That allows us to move on to item 8, which is, allows council to consider bylaws. As item 8.1, council is invited to approve a bylaw which will permit a conditional second dwelling unit at 6821 line 87 as requested by Neil and Joyce Oman. Are there any questions before we consider this? Not seeing any, so I have a resolution as follows, that bylaw number 58-2022 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a conditional second dwelling agreement with Neil and Joyce Oman be introduced, read, and considered read a third time. Is it only a third time that we need to read this? Sorry, I'll try that again. Read and considered read a third time and be finally passed. Oh, it should be full. Okay, so we have a little typo with the resolution before me, council. Sorry, we're gonna fix that right now. Again, the bylaw number 58-2022 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a conditional second dwelling agreement with Neil and Joyce Oman be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Barnes, can I call on you to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I would be happy to move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you be our seconder on this?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And so with that, that is carried. That moves us to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of this evening? And I'm not seeing anything there. That brings us to item 10 on our agenda. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? If you'd like to speak, please indicate in the web chat window. And Councillor Rothwell, because you're on the phone, if you have anything you'd like to add here, just type up.
Nothing to add.
All right, thank you. Well, we're not seeing any indication of special news or announcements, which allows us then to move to item 11. Council, we're going to take a break as we go in camera for a few minutes, as usual, to set up the AV, but I think we'll need bio breaks too. So let's take those. Let's get on with the resolution here. We have one to be considered in a closed session meeting of council. I will now read the resolution that both explains and enables our action to enter closed session as follows. Council proceed in camera at 8:59 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following: personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, regarding Celebrate North Perth awards. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Kellum to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston, will you be our seconder here?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Not seeing any, so let's have that vote. Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that is carried. Council, that means we are about to move into a closed session for our next round of business. And what that means is that staff who have not been invited to participate in the closed session should exit the call at this time. I am going to configure the AV in the chamber, and I'll ask you to return to your chairs for our closed session meeting at 9:07 p.m. So we have about 7 minutes at this point. Until then. I think we have the AV reset. Councillor Richardson, if you do our usual good service for the night and let us know whether YouTube is sending a signal, that would be much appreciated.
Wait on the delay and I will advise momentarily.
Yeah.
Clear.
We're good? All right.
We're good to go.
Thank you very much. All right, I can confirm that for item 12 on our agenda, council did have a discussion pertaining to the Celebrate North Perth Awards for the 2021 year. And more information will become available about that in due course. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have the draft for a confirmatory bylaw number 61-2022, which reads as follows: that bylaw number 61-2022 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the council of the municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Anstead, would you be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder of this one?
I will second that motion. Thanks.
And it's nice to have both those councillors involved in the confirmatory. It's often because of financial things, they don't get the privilege of moving and seconding. So thank you, councillors. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
I'm in favor. Thank you.
That is carried. Councillors, that means we've completed the deliberation and the action, taken action on the business that did come before us tonight. I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 9:33 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, April 25th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this?
So moved.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Not debatable. Let's have that vote. Councillor Rothwell, what say you?
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, it is carried. This council will meet again for our next regular meeting using digital technologies. I'll find my words. On Monday, April 25th, 2022. Until that time, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, council, for another good meeting.